Try as they will, and try as they might. Who steals me gold won't live through the night. That was all.
Well, it was better than Warwick Davis, so you're fine.
Yeah. Welcome to the Hey Guys podcast. I'm Rob, that's Liam, and this week for our fourth in our Hugtober season, we watched The Leprechaun, starring Warwick Davis and a pre-friend, Jennifer Aniston. Now, if you hadn't guessed, Warwick plays the titular leprechaun, who has travelled all the way from Ireland to get his gold back, and God help anyone who gets his near his way, especially if he has a pogo stick. This film, to be fair, is just one gag after the next. What can we make the leprechaun use next? A trike, pogo stick, a go-kart, a small car, roller skates, a wheelchair. I mean, the list is endless. Oh, no, actually, the list ends there. It was filmed on a modest budget and not very well received. But Leprechaun must have found its audience as it spawned 6 sequels. And yes, it's pretty much the Leprechaun looking for his gold in all of these films. I mean, that stuff seems to just get taken more times than Princess Peach. Now, before we get into why this film is terrible, I will say I'm a big fan of the Leprechaun films to a point, and this is a great jumping off point. It's ridiculous in every aspect of the word, but Warwick Davis is loving his time on this film, and it clearly shows. Oh my God, I just wish someone would have chucked Alex down the well and left him there. I'd steal the Leprechaun's gold to have him tear my ears off just so I didn't have to listen to that little shit anymore.
Not a fan,
Fucking hell, mate. Not a fan of Alex.
I just got to ask though, are there 7 movies or 8? Because I've seen box sets which show the 7 movies, and there's an 8th one, and I'm not sure if that includes, and I would hope any box set doesn't include, the Leprechaun's game from 2020, which is available on Amazon Prime, and I would suggest it's worth watching the opening 10 minutes just to see how bad a movie can be. It's fucking unbearable, and I watched it directly after this. Admittedly, not a fantastic film, but not a movie without its merits. That movie, or the 10 minutes of that movie I watched, gave me a greater appreciation of the original Leprechaun by comparison. So I'm not sure if that would be included.
No, so I don't think Leprechaun's game or whatever you watch was anything to do with the Leprechauns. But technically, there's 8 films.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So there's the 6 that I've already told you. There was Leprechaun, Leprechaun 2, Leprechaun 3, Leprechaun in Space, Leprechaun Back to the Hood. No, Leprechaun in the Hood, Leprechaun Back to the Hood. Then there was.
I can't believe you just delivered those with a straight face. Like that's a normal collection of titles.
Yeah.
Leprechaun in the Hood, Back to the Hood, in Space. What the fuck is going on? That is absolutely insane. But sorry, carry on, please.
No, that's okay. And then I said there was a WWE original film called Leprechaun Origins.
Fantastic.
Which was meant to be like a remake of this, and it starred Hornswoggle at the time, Dylan Hornswoggle.
Okay,
the wrestler,
yeah,
who used to come down to the ring dressed as a leprechaun.
Mm-hmm.
And then when was it? It wasn't long ago, mate. Sci-Fi did one. I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
Leprechaun Returns, which brings back Ozzy.
Mm-hmm.
It brings back Tori's daughter.
Okay,
and they go back to the house because now house is now run by a college where the leprechaun comes back. So I think that
it's like that one's like a direct sequel almost kind of thing to the first one.
So it's somebody called Lyndon Porco who hasn't done much. He plays the leprechaun. The leprechaun's actually given a name and we'll get into the sequels as we go on. He's given a name in the sequels is Lubden, but I don't know if it's the same or meant to be the same leprechaun because basically in this one he says he's 600 years old. But in Leprechaun 2, you're in 990 AD, and he says he's 1,000 years old because every 1,000 years he gets to have a wife. So I don't know what's going on. But
I wouldn't worry too much about consistency in the Leprechaun lore across the 7 movies. I suspect the movie I was talking about, The Leprechaun's Game, is just the fact that, well, the Leprechaun as an entity is fair game in terms of, creativity. I don't think it's under kind of any kind of licensing deal. And just to make things clear, like this Leprechaun is like 6'2" and looks like an absolute jackass. So I assume it's just like one of those where, like nowadays you can have like Winnie the Pooh killing motherfuckers and making because it's all become part of the public domain. I assume the Leprechaun's always been part of the public domain, so they can just do what you want. And
this is coming from me. That looks awful.
Oh, dude, it's fucking believable. It looks like a kind of college-made film with just more of a budget. The acting, everything about it is absolutely shocking. It just reminds you that, there's kind of, your everyday movies, and there's your B movies, and then there's a couple of steps down, and you get this absolute tripe where, like, who is providing the funding to making these movies? I assume that some people watch them, and obviously it's ended up on Amazon Prime, so they're getting some kind of income from somewhere, but unforgivably terrible, I'm sad to say.
So they've done a few of them by the sounds of it. So sorry, we haven't even spoken about this film
about
yet.
The actual Leprechaun. Yeah, we're just talking about the extended Leprechaun universe at this point.
Because the guy that played the Leprechaun in, as you called it, Leprechaun's Game, but it's Vengeance of the Leprechaun on IMDb.
Yeah,
there was also Leprechaun's Rage, so it got a sequel.
fantastic.
This guy has, like, the guy that played the Leprechaun, he seems to have a niche in playing monsters in B movies. He was like the Djinn in Evil Genie between the two Leprechaun films. Then he was Humpty Dumpty in Curse of Humpty Dumpty 2. He was Genie in Conjuring the Genie 2. He was an alien in Alien Invasion.
Oh,
and
he's basically just a really shit Boris Karloff at this point, isn't he?
And this dude has not starred in a film above 4. Oh, Artemis Fowl was 4.3.
What does that Leprechaun movie guess on IMDb? It can't be above like 3.2.
The Leprechaun's Game, the one you said.
Yeah,
2.1.
Oh, yeah, now we're talking. 2.
Yeah.
Do you know how rarefied that is to be on 2.1 on IMDb? How bad it has to be? I have to assume it's in the same kind of category as, you don't see them so much nowadays, but some supermarkets still do DVDs. And it's like when a new Transformers movie comes out, there'll be one called like Transmonsters.
Transmorphers. It's the Asylum, dude.
Yeah. Where they're like, they're hoping somebody's like an idiot, and they're like, oh, it's a Transformers film, and they buy it. It's a similar thing. They're like, oh, cool, a new Leprechaun movie. I remember the Leprechaun films. And I'm sure that's their business model. Just enough people not knowing any better and buying this absolute bollocks, or watching it on IMDb. On Amazon. I do apologize. But
so that's 2.1 tripe. Let's move on to what is considered gold with the 4.8 rated Warwick Davis starring Leprechaun, directed by Mark Jones, who hasn't done much, except after this, he gave us another, like, Rumpelstiltskin, where Rumpelstiltskin is a little...
I saw that.
Yeah.
Not well received either, unsurprisingly.
No, I remember watching that as well. I liked Rumpelstiltskin.
That, of course, you see, because the other one I noticed was Scorn, because that's Billy Zane in it. But the one thing I had to check was, this was actually the first in-house production for Trimark Pictures, who are no longer with us, sadly, but had like a bit of a run with low budget stuff. And this was actually a big hit for them. It was a 1 million, or just under $1 million for the budget. And I think it did like 8.6 million at the box office, and would have done a lot more on VHS and DVD. So it made a lot of money in fairness.
Yeah.
But this is a company that went on to such classics as Warlock. I'm assuming you've seen that, because I've seen that.
Warlock. Yeah.
Kickboxer 2, I know you've seen that.
Yeah.
Thunder in Paradise, I think we've both seen that.
The actual film pilot before the TV show. Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
Cyborg 2, I know you're all over that, motherfucker. Yeah. Death Wish 5, I think that might be a stretch for you.
No, I've seen Death Wish 5.
Motherfucker, you've seen Death Wish 5?
That's got Jason Connery in it, hasn't it? Sean Connery's kid.
Sorry, you're asking me like, I'm like, yeah, sure. You can say anything. I have no idea who's in Death Wish 5.
Sorry. No. Death Wish 5. No. I went, Wishmaster. My apologies.
Fair enough. So yeah, that's why Death Wish didn't feel like a Rob movie. So I was like, the idea that you'd seen Death Wish 1, I was like, if I had to guess, have you seen Death Wish? I'd probably be like, probably not. 5, that's a stretch.
I've seen Death Wish, and I think I've seen 2, but that's as far as I go. I haven't seen. Yeah.
And Turbulence 3, Heavy Metal.
Yeah, seen that.
Oh, how the fuck? I was like, oh my God, that was the one I was really on the edge. I was like, maybe, but who the fuck has seen Turbulence 3 Heavy Metal?
They do metal show in the sky. Have you seen the original Turbulence with Ray Liotta?
I've not seen the original.
Turbulence is good.
Oh fuck, I have. No, yeah. I have. I did not make the connection for some reason. I totally forgot that was a film. Even though I was talking about Turbulence, I forgot about Ray Liotta in the first one. I have seen that movie. Yeah. That was okay. Not great, but it was okay.
Turbulence 3 had Craig Sheffer, who we've done on with Nightbreed. Mm-hmm. Gabriel Anwar, who was in the Three Musketeers. She's been in she's best known for me now as Fiona in the Burn Notice TV show from like 2007.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Rutger Hauer and Joe Mantegna.
that is quite a cast. And some people listen to this must be like, I thought this was a Leprechaun podcast. You haven't mentioned the movie other than just kind of saying, well, it exists. That's all we know for sure at this point, is that it's a 4.8 on IMDb and it exists.
Yep.
So I assume, right? I know you have a connection to this film. I'd never seen this movie before, but I'm, like most film fans, I'm fully aware of it. I mean, 4.8 feels about right to me. No spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But right, fundamentally, this isn't a very good film. You go and you watch it. It's not wonderfully acted. It's not wonderfully acted. We'll get to that in a minute. It's not wonderfully directed, but Warwick Davis does bring something to the film. He does elevate what is not great material, and I can totally see, despite the fact that it's not great, why it's become such a cult classic, because it is not without its redeeming features at all. I was watching it, and on the one part of my brain is going, this is bad, and the other part of my brain is going, yeah, but you're kind of enjoying it.
That's it. I'm not going to die on the hill and tell you that this is fantastic, because it's not. Mm-hmm. But what it is fun.
Yeah.
Because of Warwick Davis, because they're making him do these stupid things. Like, you should be able to take this guy. And speaking of stupid, the best magic in this is definitely the shotgun. The shotgun is the most magic thing I've
million rounds in it, of course,
ever seen. He reloaded that once with 2 rounds, and he still kept going. Mm-hmm. But it's fun. And the thing is, it's Warwick Davis. Warwick Davis knows he's not getting a lot of starring roles. Unfortunately, in the 90s, he knows that's not happening. Like, he had Willow, and then he's done a lot of
he's a bit of a dry spell after that. And he was actually still contracted to Lucasfilm and had to be released from the contract to make this movie. And obviously, it's a unique role, but
which is why George Lucas gets a special mention in the credits,
which is fantastic. Yeah, I noticed that in the credits. There's another really weird special thank you in the credits, which it's like the governor of something. I can't remember. It's something ridiculous. Anyway, but he's totally elevating the work, and the script is completely whatever. Like I said, the direction is fine at best. But when you have, and it is the two people, unsurprisingly, the two people you'll know are the two people that stand out. It's Jennifer Aniston as Tori, who totally elevates a poorly written character. I tell you what, Tori by the end of the film isn't far from Rachel in season 1 of Friends. Because basically, you just replace, her fighting a fucking leprechaun versus having a really bad relationship with, was it Bobby or whatever his name? She was going to get Barry. She's going to get married to Barry, and she's all spoiled and she's a brat, and then she learns to be a better person. It's very similar to this, and just like Rachel in Friends, she's really likable despite the fact that her character's a bit of a douche. And by the end, I'm just like, yeah, I just like fucking Jennifer Aniston in this film. And it's the same with Warwick Davis. It could be a whatever role. Oh, look, I'm playing a monster. And he's got a lot of fucking makeup on. It's good makeup, but you can't tell from an aesthetic perspective that it's Warwick Davis, of course. But he elevates the material and he brings that sense of humor, which ostensibly is the reason that people remember this film. It was initially supposed to be a straight-up horror. I think if it'd been made as a straight horror, it would have come out, it would have done okay, it would have been forgotten about. But because Warwick Davis is bringing that sense of fun to the film, that's the reason it's lived on, I think.
Do you think as well that they could have got a better male lead? Not Warwick Davis.
You mean the guy who played Nathan?
You mean the 70-year-old man that played Nathan? Like, Ken I don't know Owens. How meant to be Ken Oland. Yeah, they're not meant to be in school or anything like that. But she is a bratty teenager. She's gone on about watercress salad and all this shit from Beverly Hills. I get it, but he's 11 years her senior in real life for a start.
Yeah. And he looks it.
He looks it. Like, they're trying to hide it with this weird mullet thing he's got going on. It just doesn't seem to work.
No.
I'm the one who's come out and said, I love this. Well, not love this film. I like this film. I enjoy this film. But as you said, there is a lot that is wrong with this film.
It's easy to pick it apart. And it starts with him. It starts with him. And what are they called? The three guys.
That paint. Yeah.
I mean, what is their, maybe you've seen this a bunch of times. You can explain the relationship between the three guys that paint. So you've got Alex, Nathan, and Ozzy. What the fuck is going on with those three guys?
So Alex and Nathan are brothers, and I'm guessing Ozzy is a neighbor who
special needs.
Yeah, who they've just taken under their wing. So he's probably just looked. Do you know what it is? He's the same mentally as Alex, probably, isn't he? Alex thinks he's older than him.
Well, that's the idea.
They've become friends, and Nathan's taken him on board. He can't now see. I mean, Ozzy is like he's the chunk of the Leprechaun universe by the sounds of it. He's constantly telling people tall tall tales and things like that.
Yeah,
So
except for the fact that he's clearly mentally challenged. And I mean, you can see that in the painting style. I mean, I'm not sure what they asked for, but they are painting that house like fucking morons. That red and blue color scheme, which they're starting with, I'm like, Jesus Christ, what are you trying to create here? A
they're
fucking
not
fun
even
house?
they're not even painting the same spot. Every time you go back, they've moved to a different corner of the house at the front of the house. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
they gave up on the blue and moved on to painting, like you
They're the
said,
worst.
painting
Alex isn't even
the
doing anything. He's
windows
just
red.
hanging around.
Yeah, Alex isn't doing anything except, I don't know, keeping an eye on Ozzy, so that's not working for a start because
Mm-hmm.
Ozzy is just all over the shop.
Yeah,
And
they're terrible.
the other thing about the Three Guys Who Paint that's terrible is their car that
Mm-hmm.
has to be fixed by the 12-year-old, but the way he fixes I don't know, is just wiggle a distributor cap wire, and then they don't even start it first. He's so confident that Alex has fixed it by wiggling that wire
Mm-hmm.
that he lets Alex close the bonnet, run around, get back into the bed, and once he's in the bed, he starts the car. What if he started it and went, oh, it doesn't work again? All right, well, we'll do it again. Open it, wiggle the wire, or close it, get
Mm-hmm.
back in the back. No, it's not working. Try it again. Like, he was so confident that his brother knew what he was doing. So he can't paint for
Yeah.
shit, but apparently he's the world's greatest mechanic.
Which comes back to the idea that this film largely gets by with the fact that as long as you treat it lightheartedly, as long as you treat it as a comedy, which largely it isn't. Warwick Davis is playing it for laughs. I'm not sure if everyone else necessarily is,
Yeah, I
but
think he got
because
the
he's
memo.
playing, what's that? Sorry.
I think he got the memo. He read the script and said, "Well, the only way this is going to work is if we play it for laughs." Everyone
Mm-hmm.
else thought, "Oh, this is my big break."
Yeah. And
Yeah.
bizarrely, well, it wasn't Jennifer Aniston's big break. It just
No, she was
coincided.
already on Friends. I think she already had the
Well, she
Friends
wasn't.
gig before.
No, because they filmed this in 1991,
I
and it
thought it was
wasn't released.
92. It was released in
No,
93 and Friends came out in 94.
I thought they filmed it at the end of 91, and then because of distribution things and stuff, it didn't get released until 93. So when she
Okay.
was filming it, at least, like Friends was nowhere near. But
Yeah.
then it just like the release coincided with the popularity in Friends, and obviously that was a big break. But there's a reason when you look at like all the VHSs and stuff back in the day, it's all got a big picture of Jennifer Aniston because she's the star, isn't she?
Yeah.
Obviously, the original poster was just the Leprechaun because it's called fucking Leprechaun. But later DVDs, VHS, blah blah blah, they're just like, we've got to cash in on this whole Rachel thing. And I get it, like you said, she's totally likable in this film, and she's super pretty, even with her like totally 90s hair and her LA Gear trainers, which I totally noticed. That was a great throwback. Although I looked them up, you can still buy LA Gear both in America and over here. We're Sports Direct naturally, but I was like, I thought LA Gear was a thing of the past. Although, speaking of fashion sense, I was a little concerned because at one point Alex is wearing Reebok pumps and he's got a San Francisco 49ers cap, and I also own Reebok pumps and a San Francisco 49ers cap, and I'm a 42-year-old male in 2024, which made me a little bit sad about my life.
Are you going to get
the
the different color laces as well, just to be cool?
I've already got them. I just need to put them on. That's all that is. But yeah, like it's good fun. I mean, we talk about it being funny. It's just Warwick Davis hamming it up. Like comedy horror is hard to do, but this movie, make no mistake, it lacks nuance or the depth that the best of the genre has to offer. Like a couple of days ago, I watched Shaun of the Dead because it's like the 20th anniversary. And you look at something, and I know that's like one of the finest examples of the genre, but when you watch that, it's like smartly subverting tropes. It pokes fun at the genre while simultaneously like celebrating it. The dialogue's super sharp, and then you watch this and you're like, all right, it's just Warwick Davis just turning up to 11. That's basically where the comedy comes from. But right from the off, it's quite charming. And, when the movie starts and you have the most Irish motherfuckers in the world, which only brings attention to the fact that Warwick Davis, considering he's called the Leprechaun, has a fucking dog shit Irish accent. But it's like, what's his name? O'Grady, Irishton, whatever the fuck his name is.
Daniel O'Grady, who played by an actor named Shay Duffin, which, if that's not Irish, Shay Duffin. But
super fucking Irish.
Before you go, because Pamela Mans played Mrs. O'Grady, who looked more like his mother than his wife. But okay. When he got out of that limo, did he scull a bottle of Jameson's?
It looked like it.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ, I know you've got a bit of money, but you're asking for trouble. I was wondering if that kind of, because later on, well, not much later, but when he has his showdown with the leprechaun, I was trying to figure out, does the leprechaun just get lucky? And I know leprechauns being lucky is kind of their shtick, but it felt like O'Grady had him dead to rights, but just so happened to like have a problem with his heart. Was that because of the leprechaun?
It was
Or
the
was the
leprechaun.
leprechaun just, okay, the leprechaun did it.
No, so I think it was the leprechaun, like put a curse on him. So, and the curse apparently was a stroke.
Well,
But
he had it coming because right at the start, and it's one of those classic horror tropes. You go down into the basement, you've got a suitcase, and that motherfucking suitcase starts talking. And not only that, it's like a little girl fucking voice coming out.
Open it.
You open it, I would immediately set that motherfucker on fire. Yeah. I was like, there's no way I'm opening that. If you open that, you deserve to die. There's only one person dumber than O'Grady in this movie, and that's the fucking cop later on who throws his baton into the woods for no apparent reason. So this film is full of dumbass characters, but I mean, O'Grady opening that suitcase is absolutely unforgivable.
Well, no, that was Mrs. O'Grady opened it, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It wasn't O'Grady, so it was Mrs.
It was
O'Grady.
just dumb.
Yeah, so he apparently hitched a ride in O'Grady's suitcase. I keep calling him O'Grady because that's just his IMDb credit. He's O'Grady.
Yeah. I call him O'Grady. Yeah.
So the leprechaun has hitched a ride, apparently in the suitcase, and then he's come out. That's absolutely fine. And he accidentally kills Mrs. O'Grady and then uses her voice. But he's got some magic, but not enough because he hasn't got his gold, and his gold is like a magic conduit, I guess.
Yeah,
but he's got enough. He's got enough to give O'Grady a stroke. And I like you said that, is he lucky? No, the leprechaun is probably one of the most unluckiest fuckers in the world because for 10 years, not one gust of wind, not one visitor managed to knock that 4-leaf clover off. It wasn't, dude, that 4-leaf clover, he didn't even manage to get the nails into the box, right? Because he had his heart attack / stroke. All he did was place the 4-leaf clover on top. So for 10 years, that thing hasn't deteriorated. It's literally just sat on top of that box.
Magic powers. I mean, that whole sequence it's worth it for my favorite line in the movie, of course. Burn in hell, you little green bastard. I was just like, okay, I'm going to enjoy at least some of this fucking movie for sure. But yeah, that is kind of dumb. And he gets stuck in that house. You mentioned about visitors not going there. I understand that bit at least, because that house is a complete piece of shit. And I do not understand the whole Tori or Jennifer Aniston, whatever you want to call her, going on holiday with her dad to this house. Like, do you understand what's happening here? Has he bought the house as an investment?
I think he's bought it as a summer house.
It's a terrible house.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But the fact of the matter is as well, somebody has had to have lived there because there's no way he's just bought the house and gone in and it's already got cereals and the fakest Lucky Charms box ever. I should have written it down, the name of that Lucky Charms box or whatever it was. And he goes, me da. He eats the fucking marshmallow shit. But so somebody's been living in there. And I think it's O'Grady. I think O'Grady has been living in there, but not gone down into the basement till it got to the point where he couldn't anymore and they've shipped him off to the home. Because they do mention that O'Grady was a bit of a cantankerous old bastard and he's now in this home. So I'm guessing what happened was it just got O'Grady's been on watch. Nobody go down to the basement. The leprechaun's down there. He's been on watch for years and then he's been shipped off.
Because you wouldn't want to go down and fuck around with it or anything. You're like, all right, that's on there. I'm not in the best shape. I'm like, you can't go telling anyone because they all think you're fucking crazy. Ozzy can, of course, because, you know, he's out of his fucking mind. But O'Grady's like, listen, if I go telling people, they all think I'm like an absolute head case. So he's just like, I'm just shutting the door to the basement. I'm leaving the 4-leaf clover on there. I'm leaving him down there and just I'm getting on with my life to one extent or another. So yeah, I'm willing to go with that. That's fair enough.
And it seems like he sold it and then the dad has bought it. And I'm guessing a summer home. But I mean, you could do that. You could think of I mean, they're not worried too much about the backstory, so why should we be? It's like then again, this is coming from me, who always wants to know why the fuck they did these things.
Well, it was more like the last shot of the film because the kind of camera pans up and you see just how small the house actually is. Yeah. It's really tiny, and I think my big issue really is that you end up with this whole odd thing with Jennifer Aniston, who, like you said, is really good in this film. She's stuck there with her old man. And I'm like, I just don't see the point of this because her father gets his hand bitten and just gets kind of shipped off to hospital. You never see him again. It's like, why didn't they fall back on the classic trope of, we've got a group of teens, they found out about this house out in the fucking sticks and they're going to go stay there in the summer and they're going to get stoned. I guess maybe because you need an excuse to get it painted, but I'm sure you could work your way around that. Because if one of the big issues with this film, I find, and when you were listing them, it sounded quite interesting. But this film, it doesn't have enough in the way of like genuinely interesting deaths. And we've
No.
said this before about getting more characters in the film so you can kill more people off. And yeah, it has the pogo death and all these other things. But I was just like, I was watching this film, I was just like, it needs more gore. It needed.
Watch the sequels. Fuck me. Watch the sequels if
There you
you
go
want
for it
gore.
today.
Yeah. There's a scene where he enchants a guy who thinks
Mhm.
he's getting off with a woman. And it
Mhm.
turns out it's not a woman, it's an upturned lawnmower.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool. I mean, that's
Yeah.
fucked up. I'll give you that. But that's what I mean. It's like when you were describing the deaths in this film and what the leprechaun gets up to, and he has his go-kart and his pogo stick. And in fairness, there's like an eye gouge later in the film, which is probably the closest
Yeah,
thing
but
to
it's an
being a
eye
cannibal
gouge
death.
to a dead person already, so
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
mean
So
anything. Yeah.
whatever. But I was just like, in practical terms, when you watch it on screen, they're just not as cool as they should be. And that was
No.
maybe my biggest issue. I was like, because this is like a dumb horror film, horror comedy. And I just think like, oh, if the kills were really interesting and like on paper, they probably work. It's like, oh, you're reading it and you're like, well, this sounds fucking awesome. But then you watch it and like, it's okay. It's okay. They
And
all
it,
just fell a
it,
bit flat for me.
it kind of takes you out of it as well, because when it starts getting to the action scenes, they know, unfortunately, that Warwick Davis can't do a lot of these scenes. He can run around a little bit, but he's not doing a lot of these action scenes. So when it cuts around to, I don't know, the 6 foot person in the leprechaun outfit, and they've got to shoot it at weird camera angles to make sure he doesn't look, then it starts to take you out a bit. I did laugh at the pogo scene. It was stupid. I mean,
You
absolutely
mean
not
the
necessary.
pogo kill at Joe's collectible coin store in the tiny ass town they were staying in? So right,
Tiny
basically,
ass.
well, they've got this like little like hut they're staying in,
Yeah.
their summer home. So they go into town, clearly not a big town, but of course, Ozzy has found one of the leprechaun's coins. So he wants to get it appraised. And just so happens that this little ass town has a place called Joe's Collectible Coin Store.
Yeah.
Give me a fucking break. I mean,
Although that did give me one of my favorite lines, and I'm not doing the Irish accent anymore. I can't do it. This old lep, he played one. He played pogo on his lungs. I thought that was fantastic.
I mean, they're kind of terror. We're talking about some, classic screenwriting here. This is a movie where Warwick Davis delivers the line, "Me golden delicious gold." Me like that was the best you could do. Me
Yeah.
golden delicious gold. All right, fair enough. This is what we're working with. But I did enjoy the pogo stick death. But then I started thinking, it's like Warwick Davis is like, what was he weigh? 4 stone, maybe.
Yeah, it's a push, I would say.
If he was pogoing up and down on my chest, I'm like, how long would he have to do it before he killed me? I mean, it would suck, but I'm not convinced it would kill me straight away. I guess the answer to a lot of these things is leprechaun magic. But I was just like, I'm not sure if that's just going to cut me to shreds. Just a child's pogo stick with a
And
leprechaun on it.
it's funny, isn't it, as well? Because he's got this magic and he can kill you in these weird and wonderful ways, apparently.
Mhm.
But also, he's pretty susceptible to everything. You can kick him and he'll fall down for a bit. You can shoot him and all right, it doesn't kill him, but it knocks him down. Like,
But he does
oh
get back up. It's more
yeah,
like I think of him as like a little green version of like the Terminator. Like you can shoot the Terminator and you can slow him down. You can knock him on his ass and he'll be out for a little bit. Even the T-1000, they kind of shoot him with all the shotgun cells. He falls down. He has like a little moment, but then he gets back up again. And that's the problem with this little annoying shit. Although Nathan, like you said, he has a magic shotgun earlier in the film. Maybe the most egregious example of the magic shotgun is he shoots the leprechaun and then he just shoots at a bush like 17 times. Yeah.
yeah,
Just
yeah.
completely rinses this magic
And that
shotgun.
skateboard another 17 times. That
Yeah.
skateboard in the house, yeah.
But then later on, he shoots the leprechaun again with a shotgun, has that leprechaun on the floor, dead to rights. If ever there was example of the double tackle being essential, it's like they go over and poke him. I'm just like, dude, you've got a magic shotgun. How about you shoot that motherfucker 20 more times? This isn't through a bush. You've got a clean shot and just lets him run the fuck off. Again, another example of just like, at that point, I'm like, well, you kind of deserve to die.
Speaking of Nathan, if you were the dad who has just met this guy who's painting the house,
Oh, this
you've
fucking 30-year-old man trying to run a train on your daughter. Yeah, I'd have an issue too.
thank you. I was literally about to say run a train as well, because he has now let these 3 men, 2 men and a kid,
Yeah,
two
yeah,
men
yeah.
and a kid, go back to the house that he's renting or buying or whatever he's done with it, and stay with his teenage daughter whilst he's in the hospital.
And you
And
can see the way he's looking at it. Like they clearly, well, and the way she's looking at him, in fairness, he's like, there's going to be some fucking going on soon if that leprechaun wasn't about.
but the dad is stupid anyway, because she said, I thought it was you rubbing my leg and you let me. The dad doesn't shut that down right away.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, kids, what they like. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, man, that guy's 30 years old. He's not flirting with your daughter. I mean, well, he is, but it's a means to an end in this situation. He's not looking to kiss under the covers later on. He's looking to bang. But yeah, the dad was far too cool. Like I said, I don't think the dad should have been in a full stop because he was wasted. He should have been killed at the very least. Instead, all he got was like his hand bitten and then off he goes to just disappear for the rest of the film. It was stupid.
Yeah. So make O'Grady go to the old people's home, the care home, wherever he's gone. And then you've got the story of O'Grady. O'Grady came into some gold or whatever. So the town kids, the teenager Tory, her boyfriend, their two friends, they go to the house to find O'Grady's gold. And then the leprechaun comes out. You don't need the dad. You don't need this whole random story you just need the kids from town doing it. And then, all right, and if you make them all around about the same age, you can kill them off. You don't want to kill off Alex.
I don't know why like you say, like straight away, they're not going to kill off Alex because he's too young. And they're not going to kill off Ozzy because he's like mentally challenged. It would just be weird. So you've got such a limited number of potential deaths in the film. Like you said, that's actually the perfect way to do it. It's just be like the legend of the gold. You've got O'Grady in the home. It's just like, yeah, just do that. Send like the usual bunch of 7 or 8 teenagers. They're all horny as fuck. Bit of sex, loads of killing, jobs are good. Instead, you get these weird ass characters. And I'm not convinced I like any, like, don't get me wrong. The guy who plays Ozzy, Mark Holton, I do like him, and there's a reason he's gone on to have like this career as a bit of a character actor. He was in like A League of Their Own, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Naked Gun. He's been in big movies.
He was John Wayne Gacy, wasn't he? In that acclaimed Gacy, well. Yeah.
Clearly a talented actor, but he doesn't bring enough to kind of justify that trio of characters who, I don't know, like you said, I could have just done without them. Like, you could have even had like, oh, my dad sent this painter. Like, you have the group of friends, and then Nathan comes along to paint the house, and he's all fucking Diet Coke ad style, dripping with sweat, sexy. Jennifer Aniston's into him. He gets killed off. You kill off the other teenagers. You end up with a showdown with Jennifer Aniston. It's cool. Instead, you're writing around these characters because you can't kill them. And it's never proved more, specifically that at the end of the film, when she gets the 4x4 working, she's the only one who gets in the 4x4.
Yeah.
Why the fuck aren't they all getting in the 4x4? There's room for all you motherfuckers. No, we're going to hang back with the leprechaun. Why exactly? Makes no sense.
You're spot on with Nathan as well. You make him the groundskeeper guy, like that film Amber Heard was in, All the Boys Love Mandy Lane.
Oh, yeah.
Where you had the groundskeeper guy who ended up hooking up with Mandy Lane at the end of the film. That's Nathan in this. Yeah. He's the guy then that, why are you going into this house? This house is blah, blah, blah. And then he comes back at the end and he helps to save them. Totally better film, in my opinion, but it's still, like I said, it's still fun.
Yeah, but it's still that's fun, the thing. As we said at the top, like, this is a fun film, despite the fact that it's terrible, but it's very easy to pick holes in. And it's like right the way when Ozzy is like the first one to see the leprechaun, and I can understand why fundamentally they would question, like, Ozzy comes up, he's like, I saw a leprechaun. Like, yeah, whatever the fuck, Ozzy, on your bike. However, when the rainbow actually ends at a truck, and at the end of the rainbow, there is a pot of gold, I'd be like, dude, I think there might actually be a fucking leprechaun.
I wish they would stop calling it a fucking pot of gold as well. It was a bag.
It was clearly a bag. Why do they keep calling it a pot of gold? Well, just make it a pot of gold. Like, what the fuck?
Shouldn't Alex have questioned it as well? He was clearly looking at it when that bag of gold materialized. It wasn't there, and then it was.
And then he's still like, oh, stop with all that leprechaun stuff. I'm just like, I don't know, dude. It seems pretty fucking justified at this point. This is clearly some leprechaun shit going on right here.
Corey was as well. He's seen this little man dressed up in a green outfit with buckles on his shoes, right? Yeah. And she's going, stop calling him a leprechaun. What do you want me to fucking call him? Steve. He's a leprechaun.
If this was a smarter movie, I'd give it the benefit of the doubt. Again, if I evoke Shaun of the Dead, if I may, where they're like, he's like, are there any zombies out there? And he's like, don't call them that. It's like, what? Zombies? Like, Yeah, but they are. It's like, yeah, but don't say, it's all part of the joke. This isn't part of the joke. This is just characters being done. It's clearly a fucking leprechaun. They've all seen the leprechaun. It can't be anything else but a leprechaun. And that doesn't even take into consideration the rainbow and the pot/bag of gold. But yet still, they're like, we're not mentally dealing with this. I mean, you could make an argument that it's like, oh, I'm in such a stressful situation that I don't want to mentally admit that it's a leprechaun, but I'm not willing to give this movie those kind of kudos, So I'm just like, no, the characters are just being dumb as fuck.
Hey, when they called the police, when Ozzy called the police, right? And then you've got the deputy and the sheriff in the police station. All the police are there for some reason having a party. There was like fucking 60 police officers in there. At first, when I first saw the deputy, I could have sworn that was Carlton.
From
Prince of Bel Air,
totally
with the hair and everything. I thought it was Carlton, and then when the sheriff turned around, I thought it was fucking Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah. It does look a bit like him, actually.
Yeah.
No such luck, though. No, we didn't get such exciting actors in these instances. I thought the whole cop thing didn't really land. And by that point, I think I was still getting over the diner sequence. I think he referred to it as meatloaf, but that was the most upsetting looking plate of food I have ever, and I mean ever, seen on screen in my life. I can't imagine, and don't get me wrong, I love kind of everyday muck. Like, I grew up on like fucking beans and meat and just basic foods. Everything was, we talked on the podcast before, everything I ate between the ages of fucking like 6 and 20 was just beige, different levels of beige. That brown slop was genuinely upsetting. And then Jennifer Aniston, in maybe the most 90s sentence of all time, says that she wants a watercress salad.
Yeah.
It's like, that is so specifically 1991, 1992. I don't think anyone's going into a restaurant nowadays and ordering a watercress fucking salad.
I love as well how, to prove his point about vegetarianism, he pulls off her shoe and says, "This is made from cow." The fakest leather that you've ever seen apparently was made from cow. Like, that argument doesn't work, dude.
It really doesn't. But a lot of this movie doesn't. It's like you mentioned, Alex, like the fact that he's in the movie doesn't really make sense. It's like when they're having that showdown towards the end with the leprechaun, and they just, like you say, they get the child to fix the car. Then they get him to fetch the shotgun. Why are you sending the child? And then later on, it's like, oh, where's Alex? Oh, he's safe in the house. You mean on his own in the house? Yeah, there's only one way this can end. Well, sadly, it's not going to end with him dying, but it's going to end up with a showdown. It's just people making silly choices left, right, and center.
That really upset me at the end as well. It's his line, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms," is obviously hinted towards the cereal.
The cereal,
yeah. But they can't have Lucky Charms in the film, so he pulls out Lucky Clovers. The cereal box is called Lucky Clovers. Yes. So if you're going to call the box Lucky Clovers, then say "fuck you, Lucky Clovers," or just don't show the box, and then you can have "fuck you, Lucky Charms" at the end. It just made no sense.
Do one or the other, I suppose. But Jesus Christ! But yeah, I mean, the ending of this film, which does actually go on for a bit, because you kind of have a bit in the house, then you have like a few chase sequences, then she, what does she go to? It's something ridiculous like Chillview Retirement Home, where it almost feels like a different movie. I mentioned the fact that she went there on her own.
I always thought that was halfway through the film, right? So she goes to there, then she finds out how to kill him, then he come back and you have some more drama and stuff before the big showdown. When she goes to the retirement home, there's only 20 to 15 minutes left of this film. She does it quite late.
Yeah, I consider it all part of the finale of this film, which, kind of, like you said, was almost like 30 minutes of just kind of build up. Because as I said, it was like the house scene, go to the retirement home, then come back to the house and have more of the same, basically. But it was like the whole sequence with the retirement home, it actually feels like it's from a different movie, because this film hasn't got a huge number of locations. I'm surprised. You got the house, you have the diner, and then you have the retirement home. But it is actually genuinely quite creepy. And, he's obviously pushing the boat out a bit for that sequence, because all of a sudden you get like Dutch angles, creepy lighting. I'm not convinced it all works, but it does feel like a different movie and a more traditional horror movie at that point.
Yeah.
It all gets a bit silly, of course, when they go back to the house, because you get the leprechaun there. But, you get that impression that I think the director always wanted to make a straight up horror, and that was his moment. But then, of course, he goes back and it's like, well, I guess Warwick Davis is swinging for the fences. And, whatever you might say about Warwick Davis, he's still the most famous thing in this movie by a long, long fucking way. So I guess he's just doing it this way. But I actually quite like that sequence, even though when Tori gets to, I keep killing Chillview Retirement Home. It's not called that. It's called something similar to that. but it has the most simplistic, ridiculous filing system of all time. She shows up, the security guard has a single desk in an empty room, and it's just a sheet of A4. That's it. It just happens to be on his desk, and she can just read through and go, Grady's up on floor 7, room 5. I'm like, that is your filing system. I know it's 91, but most people even had computers by then. But even if you are doing it by paper, it's just one sheet of A4 on a desk. Give me a fucking break.
Retirement home almost looked as bad as the one in Bubba Hota.
It's not a million. And if you were watching it now, you would think of it almost as being a send-up of cheesy horror films. Because it reminded me a little bit of Garth Marenghi's Dark Places. Like, it has that look about it, even with the sound and the use of lighting and all that jazz. But it's kind of fun. But then, like I said, most of the movie is kind of fun. It's dumb. I mean, we are talking about a film where, for no reason whatsoever, the Leprechaun suddenly has a go-kart that pays no mind to the laws of physics. Like, when he kind of slowly drives up to the truck and just pushes it over, I'm just like, all right, sure. It's that kind of
go-kart doesn't even hit it. It's the fork at the front of the go-kart that manages to deliver that much power to flip the truck.
Again, Leprechaun magic. We're just going to have to go with that.
It did look great though when he started choking on the 4-leaf clover and then he started melting, and I thought that was
pretty cool.
Yeah, and then when he came back up from the well and Nathan goes up and shoots him, that was all great. Then they fucking ruined it with him pouring petrol on it.
Yeah,
pouring it down like it's a well. He's poured petrol into a well. He's lit it, and it's given you a Simpsons-esque pram explosion.
Yeah, when I watched it, I literally said to my wife, I was watching it, I was like, so why exactly did the well explode? It literally looked like he put 10 ton of napalm down there. It was so stupid. It was funny, but again, stupid.
And they were so close to it as well. Like, there's debris from that well. There's bricks flying everywhere. And they're like, oh, yeah, we're not going to get cornered. We'll be fine.
Yeah, and the thing is, after the leprechaun actually dies, or supposedly dies, it briefly turns into a different movie again. It's like they had this sit-down chat with Ozzy where it's like, oh, I've had enough of your faith and magic chat. And he's like, no, you just have to believe. I was like, this sounds like something out of the never-ending story. And there's nothing else in the rest of the film which would justify the conversation that they're having. This whole idea of like, you just have to believe in this. It's like, no, you've not been saying this for any other part of the film. Where the fuck has this come from? And all I can think is it's like part of that initial script where they were taking it much more seriously. And then all of a sudden he's just like, well, I'm having this at the end regardless, even though at this point it makes zero fucking sense because we're clearly just playing this for laughs. Very, very silly. But I did enjoy the well explosion, despite the fact that it made not even a lick of sense. Zero sense.
I was just...
sorry, Karen.
You mentioned about the go-kart. I still can't get over the fact that they thought, you know what we'll do? We'll put him on a trike. We'll put him on roller skates. We'll have this funny Wile E. Coyote moment where he goes through the fence and it's just the leprechaun shape through the fence. They give him a skateboard. It's like they went to Toys R Us and said, just go down this aisle and pick whatever you can fit on. Like,
I totally forgot about the bit with the fence. That really was Wile E. Coyote style, wasn't it? And again, it shows the inconsistency with the tone in this movie. It's basically the leprechaun is in a different movie to everyone else. No, like you said, Warwick Davis. I don't think there was a memo. I think it was like, well, everyone got the memo saying this is a horror film. And then Warwick Davis just like, I'm just doing this. And everyone's just like reacting to it like, well, I've got this line in the script, so I'm going to go with it. But like you said, when you list the vehicles that the leprechaun rides in this film, and the fact that the broadest bit of comedy in the film is without question that bit you just said there. When he goes through the fence and there's a leprechaun shaped hole in the fence. Sorry, I can't speak all of a sudden. That really is broadly comedic as fuck. Yeah. I don't think it belongs in this film, but sure. But then at the same time, I think again that's probably one of the reasons that it's lived on, because you're laughing at it rather than with it. But for horror, that's fine. And I've said it before, if ever there is a genre of movie where you can watch an objectively bad movie and still enjoy it, well, me personally anyway, it's 100% horror. There's something fun about picking holes in a horror movie, which isn't necessarily fun in a drama or even in an action movie. I know you have different feelings with action movies, but it's like, if it's a really bad action movie, I'm just like, this is just a bad action movie. Whereas if it's a really bad horror film, I'm just like, this can still be fun as long as it's charming. And this film is, for all its faults, inherently quite charming.
Yeah.
Should we move on to our favorite scene?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm just checking my notes now. I don't think there's anything else I've said. No, yeah, I'm good. We can go favorite scene. I'll feel free, mate.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, actually, I was going to ask: It's Robert Hyde Gordon, wasn't it, who played Alex? Was he the kid from Don't Tell Mum the Babysitter's Dead?
Yes, he was.
That's yeah. It just
Yeah.
popped into my head. Then I was just like, I totally forgot to look it up. I was like, I know I've seen that motherfucker somewhere, and
He
I was
was
just like,
also he was also Elijah Wood's friend in Forever Young. I remember that.
is that
In
the one
the
with Mel Gibson?
Mel Gibson where he
Fuck, I've not seen that for a long time. That's not a great
and
movie. I won't be watching
no,
that
no,
again.
no, no, no. And there was the other what was the other one I knew him from? Mr. Nanny.
Oh fuck, yeah. I
Oh
totally
fuck.
forgot. I
And
can see him.
also
I can totally see him on the poster of Mr. Nanny now. Totally. I
as
think
I'm
that might
think
even be what I was thinking
as I'm
of.
thinking now, he was also one of the friends in Rookie of the Year. Fuck me, this kid had a good childhood.
I feel like he's
Um,
one of those guys that had a run. He's probably got articles online where people have asked, "Where is Robert Hyde Gordon now?" He's been in enough around the early '90s that people will be asking that question. I suspect.
yeah, I'm just sorry. I was just looking now. He did a Quantum Leap episode. He did Don't Tell Mum, Babysitter's Dead. That was it, really. Full House, Charlie's
Fair
Go.
enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, I completely
No,
derailed things.
sorry.
It just randomly popped up into my head there.
Go for it if you want to do favorite scene.
It probably is the end of the film. It is like you said, the effects are pretty cool when he gets when the leprechaun's face starts melting and he ends up down the well. And I mentioned the fact that it's clearly stupid, but when it blows up, I was like, yeah, this is kind of the move I want to be. Because as I said, there are some cool deaths on paper, but none of them really land for me, or don't really kind of they don't live up to the premise, put it that way. Whereas, like, the leprechaun dying at the end, again, dying with air quotes, being defeated, whatever you want to call it, and then the well blowing up. If anything, that probably didn't read well on page, but they just like, we're just going to blow this the fuck up. I was like, it actually looks really cool, even though it shouldn't really work. So that's probably my favorite scene in the film.
I'd like the beginning for me because they don't hide. The very first thing you see is the leprechaun. All right, you
Mm-hmm.
see him in shadow, but you don't. And for
Good
most of
makeup.
that,
We didn't mention that. Like
yeah,
the makeup for the
yeah,
leprechaun, like the
and that's what I
leprechaun
said.
himself looks cool.
And they've said, right, we've called this the leprechaun. We've done this makeup. Let's get him from start. Let's go. And it is from the second that O'Grady skulls that bottle of Jameson's, it just goes. And then it's like, why have you brought your mother's ashes here? I haven't. It's a bag of gold, blah, blah, yada, yada. And I think that scene is great. You start to get
I
a
quite
hint
like it,
of the
yeah.
leprechaun and stuff like that. So, I mean, the right answer is the end with the effects and stuff like that. But
I
I
don't know.
do
No,
like
I would
to
totally
set
support
up
your
the rest of
choice.
the film. I do like the beginning.
I like the cold opening with the fucking Irish McIrishans, like with the ridiculous house and like the immediate showdown with the leprechaun. I actually quite enjoyed that. That would definitely be my second favorite, or I'd even go
Hey,
as far as say joint favorite sequence.
they're in the wrong decade, though, aren't they? Or the wrong timeline? Because they look like where there's the homestead and stuff. It looks like they've just come over on the boat from the potato famine, and they've gone to like
100%.
19
But he
or
rolls up in a
1880.
fucking a
No, but sorry,
1991 limo.
their homestead they should be in 1880s Wild West. They shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
actually be in
Especially his wife.
1983. Yeah.
Everything she says suggests she is a lady out of time.
But
Oh,
she is
Philip O'Grady. Oh, you fucking thing. And
that's
she's all.
not his wife. That's his mother. But I
Oh,
do no,
the,
no, it is his wife,
oh,
but it looks like his mother.
it
I
does look
do
like
like
that.
as well when the leprechaun walks through the door and he's holding the pot of tea that she's made. Like, settle down, sit down, let's have a drink, let's sort it out.
See, I think back to this film. I do like a lot of this film. It's terrible, but it is quite charming, and that's another of those scenes. The whole thing with him enjoying his tea. And just quick question: is the whole thing with shoes? Is that like a thing for leprechauns, famously, that they
I
have to clean
don't
shoes?
know. And it's something that I don't remember they carried on through the rest of the film.
Well, it's a big part of this film.
Yeah.
They
Like,
use
where did
that
they
like
get all those
four
shoes from,
times.
though?
Well, he just has a box of shoes, doesn't he? Of course, naturally. And they again totally waste that box of shoes. As soon as they realize that leprechaun will not do anything if there is a dirty shoe on the ground, they could use that to keep him at bay forever, or they could drive away, throw it off into the distance. Instead, they throw them 3 feet at the leprechaun, giving him every opportunity to clean them. So dumb.
He should be keeping himself at bay because he's basically using a dirty rag anyway to clean these shoes, but he's chucking them back on the dusty ground.
Yeah,
So they
it's a
should be
good point.
dirty anyway. So it should be looking going, oh, well, that's dirty. Clean it. Back on a dusty ground. Oh, well, that's dirty again. Clean it. Back on a dusty.
I want to say it's just like a token gesture. Like, if I see a dirty shoe, I've got to give it a quick spit shine. But still, I'm not putting this on the leprechaun. I'm putting it on them for just wasting that, this newfound knowledge where, like, dude, we could really use this. We've got, just by chance, we've got an entire box of shoes, plus the shoes on our feet. We could really fuck this guy over here and get away. no, we're just going to throw these and we're going to let one person drive away in the car, which easily holds at least six
Yeah.
people. My fucking days, you deserve to die. The
One
only one
thing
I don't want to die is literally Jennifer Aniston. It's just because Jennifer Aniston's so pretty. That's maybe no, it's not just because she's pretty, although I was always Team Aniston over Team Jolie. She is, and it is a big part of this film, genuinely likable in this film.
Yeah. One thing I did want to mention is when the leprechaun finds out that Ozzy ate the gold,
Mhm.
why did he start carving up his face, not his stomach, where the gold would be?
Don't know. Yeah, I mean, he should have. I mean, I wouldn't have been very sad if Ozzy had just died. Like, he even has that moment at the end where he's like, "Oh, I did something smart." I'm just like, "Did you?" I guess so. Or was it Alex with his what he was gonna like do the surgery to make him smart? Oh my god!
If you
See,
want to see Ozzy,
I can
if you
talk
want to see
myself
Ozzy
in and
die,
out of this movie moment to moment. One minute, I'm just like, we start talking, like you were talking about the start of the film. We're kind of looking back at the well sequence. I'm like, fuck, I like this film. And then we start talking about other bits. I'm like, nah, it's a piece of shit. I'm. It's like Schrodinger's cat. This movie is always good and always bad all the fucking time. It's crazy.
if you want to see Ozzy die, yeah, watch The Leprechaun Returns.
It's not the one. Was it Leprechaun 2? Leprechaun Returns isn't Leprechaun 2, is it?
No, so Leprechaun Returns is the 2018 one
Oh, he comes
that
back for that one as well.
forgets the seven sequels, or the five sequels, and it's basically the one from 2018 where Lyndon Porco plays the leprechaun. But the way he comes back from the well that they killed him in this is he somehow manages to end up inside Ozzy's stomach, and he pops out like a little fucking chest
Brilliant.
burster. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's something. Well, maybe I will watch the sequel, if only for you convinced me with the whole the kiss scene. That sounds pretty goddamn
Oh,
gorgeous and
yeah, but
famous.
that's not Leprechaun Returns. That's Leprechaun 2.
Yeah, Leprechaun 2.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And that one's
Yeah.
probably got the best reviews of the whole bunch, right? Leprechaun 2.
Yeah, I believe so. That was
Not
although again,
great,
obviously,
but
yeah.
okay at least. All right, fair
Yeah.
enough. Loves and hates. For me, Davis as the titular leprechaun makes the movie despite the dodgy accents. Two, Aniston makes Tori a much more likable character than she should be. And you can totally see, again, even I know this is, us looking back, knowing the career she had, but you watch a movie like this, you can see why the director made such a big push to have Jennifer Aniston in this film, because she hadn't been in anything before. But he's like, no, guys, this is the girl, and you can see why. She clearly had something about her. It's no surprise she went on to bigger and better things. And number three, the sense of humor ultimately makes the movie. It's a solid mix of horror and dark comedy. It's not as smart as anything like Shaun of the Dead or anything, but it does nail that balance. And I think it is quite fun because of that. So those are my loves.
Well, we're pretty much on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's Warwick Davis, the look. He's having fun with this. He knows exactly what's going on. Jennifer Aniston.
Good point. Sorry, just to agree with what you said there. It's not just Warwick Davis. It is actually the look of the leprechaun. I actually think that's aged really well.
Jennifer Aniston is good in this as well. She's trying her best, so I'll give her that. That's fine. And as you said, the dark comedy, but I'll go a bit further and say the slapstick.
Mm-hmm.
I think the slapstick of this is it decided what it was halfway through the film and just went with it. So yeah. So I'm good with that.
I agree with you. It's almost like the movie changed halfway through. Like at the start, it still has these links to kind of like, oh, we wanted to be a straight horror. And then all of a sudden you got Warwick Davis doing his shtick. And then like halfway through, they're just like, this is working. Let's lean into this. And then it slowly but surely gets dumber and dumber and bigger and bigger. And it's all the better for it, in fairness. In terms of hates, the whole dad and the house storyline feels pointless. We already mentioned there's numerous ways you could have gone, which would have been much better. And the fact that he just disappears for half the movie is just like, I really don't understand why they went down that route. The deaths aren't as fun or as gruesome as they should be. And three, as great as Warwick Davis is as the leprechaun, his accent is absolutely whack. It's just terrible. Occasionally, you get like a little hint of Irish, and then it just drifts off into the distance again. So, yeah, not fantastic.
So for me, number one is Alex. Not a fan of Alex. Just everything about him was just.
Gotcha.
I know he's like meant to be a typical kid and stuff. I couldn't get on with him.
There's something about 90s American kids in movies that they've all got these terrible like bowl haircuts and stuff. And it's like, amazingly, we haven't done The Last Action Hero, but one of the hurdles, and I don't even think the kid actor is necessarily terrible in The Last Action Hero, but he's got that fucking haircut from the early 90s.
Yeah.
And just aesthetically, it bothers me, So, they're already, ice skating uphill to one extent or another.
Number two is Ozzy, because I don't think Ozzy had enough to do. He should, the way Alex is making fun of him, the way all this is, Ozzy should have had his come to Jesus moment, like his heroic moment. Not
Mhm.
not his it's in me, I'm gonna run away. That's not really his smart thing. He's like, I did a smart thing. No, mate, you did a pretty dumb thing.
I
Like,
wasn't sure if they were trying to do like a low key of mice and men thing, and
yeah.
it just didn't fucking land. But that's all I can assume that they were going for. But no, Ozzy is somewhat wasted. I agree.
And number three, kind of what you said. You said the deaths weren't too good. I think lack of deaths.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, that too.
yeah, they should have been better. They should have been more imaginative, but there should have been more of them. There should have been more
Mhm.
of a cast where you can pick these people off.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
I absolutely agree. You needed more characters. I actually think, like I said, the disappointing thing is that on paper they were relatively imaginative, and the different vehicles, and killing someone with the pogo stick, that's certainly unique, if nothing else. It's just on screen they weren't as impressive as I thought they should have been.
yeah.
Any alternative titles to this film? I mean, it'll just be surely the Leprechaun hyphen some bollocks or another, I assume.
Actually, no, there's no leprechaun. Oh, there's one leprechaun hyphen, but the rest, what different words for something that looks like a leprechaun.
All right, go for it.
So in Brazil, you got the goblin.
It's not a
In
goblin. He's not a goblin.
in Greece, you've got the elf.
It's not an elf.
Hungary is
What the fuck are we doing here?
Hungary is Revenge of the Dwarf.
Oh, what the fuck? Yugoslavia, Attack of the Minotaur. What are we doing
Yeah.
here?
Mexico, the Cursed Goblin.
Okay. Yeah, the
Uh,
thing is, right, there's no excuse for this. If this was some obscure, maybe if we say Welsh myth, you could go
yeah.
with it. I think, globally, most people know what a fucking leprechaun is.
Well, Serbia, Evil Elf.
Maybe this popularized it. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Spain, the Night of the Goblin.
Jesus Christ.
And Sweden just decided to go out on its own. The Guardian's Revenge.
I think I prefer the fucking goblin ones. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the concept of the leprechaun is a very Celtic tradition, and certainly back in the 90s, maybe it wouldn't have traveled well. And they're just like, listen, we don't know what the fuck a leprechaun is. All we know is he's small and green. He looks like a goblin. All right, I guess we're going with this. But yeah, I am surprised to hear that. I assumed it was going to be the leprechaun hyphen whatever bollocks. But yeah, supposedly leprechauns not known outside the British Isles, apparently.
He's the Guardian's Revenge, like I said for that last one. Then for Sweden, what's who's the Guardian? Is it the Guardian of the gold coins?
I don't know.
And
All I could think of when you said that was that Zack Snyder animated film, the one with the owls, the
the
Guardians of
Guardians of
Gahul.
Ghoul, Gahul, yeah, Ghoul.
Gahul. I do remember. I think fuck they used is it 5 seconds, 30 seconds to Mars?
I don't know. Oh yes, yes, yes,
Jared
yes.
Leto, they used the
Yeah.
song, and I remember like one of the owls, like the film was supposed to be pretty bad. But there's one, but like Zack Snyder, whatever you say about him, he does slow mo pretty cool. And it was like you got 30 seconds to Mars playing in the background, and the owl is flying through like heavy rain, and it suddenly goes slow motion. You can see the rain bounce off. And I was just like, whatever else they do in this movie, that is pretty fucking cool, So, but I am a sucker for slow motion Zack Snyder stuff. So what can I say? Any facts for this one?
Yep. So I'm going to touch on what we've already. So I'm going to say what we've already touched on at the beginning. So George Lucas received a special thanks credit because Warwick Davis was under contract to him, and he gave Davis permission to appear in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Vice President Dan Quayle.
That was it.
Vice President Dan Quayle.
That's better than what I said.
Received a special thanks credit because his office sped up a working visa for British actor Warwick Davis.
Fantastic. He was just like, listen, guys, I know we've got a lot going on our rack at the moment, but we've got to get this Leprechaun movie made post haste. Like, what the fuck? All right, sure. Get that visa stamped. How the fuck was he? How was the vice president involved in that?
It's the office of the vice president. Like, oh, we got to get that fucking Leprechaun movie made. Let's get it. Let's get his visa sorted.
We're not making this without Warwick Davis, and we are going to send this right to the fucking top. All right, fair enough.
So Warwick Davis started to regret making the film, but due to Aniston's later success on television, many people rented this film, and it spawned a lengthy series of sequels. Allegedly, then it was one of Warwick's favorite movies.
Well, yeah, it's totally lived on because, like you said, I'd never seen this film, but I think everyone knows about the Leprechaun film, even if they haven't seen it.
Yeah. According to Warwick Davis, there are many conflicts between the production and the distribution company Trimac Pictures. The production wanted to make a horror movie with many gore elements, similar to Friday the 13th Saga or Nightmare on Elm Street. We both agreed that would have been better. while Trimark wanted something similar to Critters or Gremlins, that were horror comedies suitable for all audiences. Through editing and different versions of scenes, a mixed variety of gore and humor were added. The movie was originally planned as a straightforward horror film, but Davis sought to add more comedic elements. We did say it was Davis's show.
Yeah.
Mark Jones.
Plus, just be clear, I mean, this film does kind of fit in the middle, but I would put this alongside, like, clearly, when I was thinking about like influences in this film, the one that jumped out to me is Critters. And I would say Critters like this. I'm not sure if Critters is kind of for all family members. That's like this movie, I'd say closer to horror. Like,
Yeah.
Gremlins has bits of horror, but you can see why it's on that kind of cusp. Whereas, like, I always thought Critters was like a step up in the horror, kind of leagues, I suppose.
Yeah.
One or two more rungs up the ladder, I guess.
Mark Jones agreed with the tonal shift, and they shot it as a horror comedy. Several scenes had to be reshot after the producers insisted that the film be made gorier to appeal to older audiences.
Well, they kind of fell in the middle. Maybe didn't like. I agree with both, but I actually think it's like you need more gore, but you want to keep the comedy as well. But I feel like, especially nowadays, like the two kind of come hand in hand, don't they? It's like, I went to see The Substance a couple of weeks ago, and that movie is fucking gross. Like, it is next level. Like, to the point where you started getting those audible reactions in the cinema. And a lot of it is just disturbing. But the final act, I won't give any spoilers, I'll just say that like it jumps the shark, but very intentionally. It knows what it's doing and goes so extreme that by the end, people did start laughing. It is between gasps, but that's the kind of, I think, the level you want to go for, where it's just like, this is so gross and so ridiculous that I can't help but laugh at it. And there's a skill tag, because you can't just go gross and hope for laughs. You can't just do like fucking Saw 7 and expect, because that is just gross and unpleasant. You've got to have that little hint of black comedy still in there to kind of elicit a gasp and a laugh almost at the same time. And that's what I feel like this should have been aiming for, but didn't quite get there.
I have to issue an apology to Warwick Davis for saying that the stunt double, because Warwick Davis performed most of his own stunts, mainly because it was challenging to find a stunt double that matched Davis's size. Unfortunately, during filming, he suffered a lung infection, and the production was filmed with the double, with Davis dubbing over the lines in post after he was healed. The taller, in air quotes, stunt double in the bear trap scene was Deep Roy. Despite this, he was the only actor who didn't get hurt when it came to stunts.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't have put Deep Roy as taller than
No, not
Warwick
necessarily.
Davis.
Warwick Davis is small, though, in fairness. He is very short.
Applying the leprechaun makeup to Warwick Davis took 3 hours, and taking it off took another 40 minutes. Davis described the experience as not a pleasant sensation. To pass the time while the makeup was being applied, Davis said he had bizarre conversations with Gabriel Bartolis, with whom he got along well. Davis was conscious of the need to stay relaxed and not move, and he channeled his confidence that the makeup effects were properly applied into his acting. Gabriel Bartolis, is he the makeup guy then? Because I didn't see.
Guess so.
Yeah, makeup department, yeah. Oh, he's done quite a few. Leprechaun, Darkman, another one we got to do on this podcast.
Oh, we do need to do Darkman. I'm amazed we haven't done Darkman, actually. Especially, we've just done horror season. Well, actually, it's my choice next for the last part of our Halloween season of Hugtober podcast. And now for a fact, at least, it isn't Darkman.
Was Darkman wouldn't be classed as a horror, though?
I think you could pass it off as a horror. It's a superhero film, but it's on the cusp. I think if you wanted to, you could pass it off as a Halloween movie, but I agree with you. I wouldn't put it in there personally.
So lastly, and filmed with a budget of just under 1 million, it ended up grossing just over 15 with DVD and VHS sales.
Not bad at all. Part of that, well, like I mentioned earlier, it made like 8.6 at the box office. And part of that was supposedly down to its aggressive marketing campaign, especially for a low budget horror, where they partnered with, of all things, the NBA and the American Stock Exchange. I was like, I don't know how the latter of those works, but it seemed to have done the trick. So yes, this movie, needless to say, did very well. In terms of Hug to the Future, so where we asked the question, remake, sequels, Let It Die, Leave Well Alone. Well, that comes with a lot of baggage, because we already know there's a bunch of sequels. We already know that one's a kind of pseudo follow-up, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure there's probably a prequel or some other bollocks. I haven't seen these films, so I'm not going to watch them. I actually think, I know there's been a direct sequel to this film, which you mentioned earlier. But if you went and did the full-on ignoring all sequels a la Superman Returns, ignoring Superman 3 and 4 and stuff, and you somehow got Davis and Aniston back, Potentially would be quite fun. I'm not sure you're going to convince Jennifer
No.
Aniston
Well,
to do a fucking Leprechaun follow-up, but that's the only way I'd be interested in watching another one of these films.
so that's what they did, didn't they? So they did all the Leprechaun films, and then they did Leprechaun Returns, which
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
direct sequel to this.
I mean,
With
even shares a title with Superman
yeah,
Returns, who did kind of the same thing.
because you couldn't get Jennifer Aniston back, you killed her off and brought in her daughter.
Oh, okay, fair enough, fair enough.
So you've got her daughter, and then you've got
Yeah,
the one legacy character then, which is Ozzy. So you bring Ozzy back.
yeah, yep, yeah. So
So
you kind of got that anyway, but really what I'm suggesting is perhaps let it die, should we say?
well, yeah, because what I would say is I'd like to see the Leprechaun character in other things, but I've seen that.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't link to the next film. Like they
Mm-hmm.
never link to the next film. All these films are completely different. The like the way the Leprechaun always comes back at the beginning, like they bring him to like in I think in Leprechaun in the Hood, he's engulfed in stone and they take a magic amulet off him, but this amulet has never been mentioned in any of the other
Mm-hmm,
films.
mm-hmm.
Like in Leprechaun in Space, they kill him at the beginning, and then one of the
Maybe we've not given enough time to Leprechaun in Space and Leprechaun in the Hood and
just listen.
Leprechaun in the Hood too. Fucking hell.
Leprechaun in Space, they kill him at the beginning, the Space Marines,
Mm-hmm.
because he's trying to get off with a space princess to become royalty.
Brilliant, brilliant.
And then one of the Space Marines decides to desecrate his corpse by pissing on him, but then his essence goes into the Space Marine. Then the Space Marine starts to have a sexual encounter with Heidi from Home Improvement,
Okay, yeah, yeah, sure.
and the leprechaun is born out of his dick.
Wow, that sounds fucking horrendous. I'm so glad that exists. I mean, I think because you've never actually had a genuinely good Leprechaun movie, even if you could just bring
Speak
back
for your
Warwick,
fucking self.
if you could just bring back Warwick Davis and really go for what I mentioned earlier, better kills, better level, like bring in a genuinely good director. I think there's still I think the premise is fun. It's obviously fun enough that it survived 7 bad films that it somehow keeps going. If you went back to the well, no pun intended, and just went, listen, we're going to start again, but we're going to do this with a bit more budget, maybe get Blumhouse involved. They feel like the kind of people who would be like, all right, the Leprechaun, we could make a bit of money out of this if we do it right, but get a half decent director and make this for the cinema. I could get on board with it. I don't want to see anything to do with the sequels. I don't want to see another straight to DVD nonsense. You've done that. You've done every permutation of that. The only way I want to see the Leprechaun back up on screen again is if they throw a bit of budget and, more importantly, a bit of talent behind it again. And I mean that in terms of behind the director's chair and maybe slightly better writing. As to whether, and I wouldn't write that off because horror movies, they're still, big money. And with companies, I don't think A24 are going to touch it, but somebody like Blumhouse, if they had the right idea and they're like, listen, the Leprechaun will still put fucking asses on seats if we do this right, it's not unthinkable, I don't think.
So due to his age, and obviously you've seen him in Willow, the Willow TV show that no longer exists apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see him come back, but due to his age, well, but again, I would probably have him as a family of leprechauns stalking somebody. So you've got him as the granddad or the dad or something like the patriarch of
That's
it.
starting to sound again a lot like a straight to DVD sequel. In fairness,
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I want it to be low key. I don't want to over explain it. I just want the leprechaun to show up, be a leprechaun, and just kill motherfuckers, basically. So I just think we just go back to our idea from earlier. But hey ho, moving on. In terms of making a change, this is where we ask a question: if you could only make one change to make this movie better, what would you do? I mean,
basically, it's going to be what I said earlier on for me. Sorry to interrupt. I just because you already said it. It's the beginning. If you're going to make a change, get rid of the dad and just have it as the traditional teens going into the haunted house.
Yeah, that kind of blends into what I was going to say, which is just more gore, more kills, and more importantly, the kills actually land. So I think it's just, as I said, better directed kills. That might be the answer. But a part of that, like you said, is get more teens and instead get rid of Ozzy and the dad and all that nonsense. And just kind of have fun with the idea of this leprechaun who's got, magic. So you really can be inventive in the same way that they were able to, we say like Freddy Krueger and stuff, and just go down that route. But I think we're basically on the same page there. In terms of video games, there wasn't a direct Leprechaun video game. I mean, the obvious answer, if you're going to make one today, would do the whole asymmetrical horror a la Friday the 13th, only, you play as a leprechaun instead. There's room for laughs to that, but like the whole asymmetrical horror thing where, one person plays the killer whether it be Jason or the Leprechaun, and the other people play the survivors. There's fun to be had, but I've never really been into it. So if it was for me personally, I'd go for Rockstar and the Bully game, only instead of a school, he needs to find his gold, maybe spread across numerous locations, or even you could do like times and histories based on what you talked about with the sequels and go that route. So I think it'd just be more fun to play as like a little asshole leprechaun, basically, where you go around killing people, but not do the asymmetrical thing, which seems to be the obvious choice because they've done it with Evil Dead. They've done it with Friday the 13th. They've done it with Leatherface or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like, I don't think you've got the opportunity to do something fun and silly with the Leprechaun because of his magic and the fact that he's like 3'2", but I'm fine. I'd prefer him to do something maybe a bit more ambitious.
So I would have gone the Five Nights at Freddy's route, like where you got the video, where you got the video cameras and everything, and you're one guy locked in a room, kind of thing, looking for the video cameras, and then seeing what's going on, and then trying to avoid the leprechaun as you're going through.
That's
I mean, where your room is could be where the gold is, and he's trying to get to you, sort of thing. So I like your ideas, but I don't know. I was just thinking about because there's not many games where you could think of a little tiny thing running after you and killing you. So I thought if you change it up a little bit, Five Nights at Freddy's sounds like that game sounds like it could be a good shout.
Yeah, and his magic powers means you really could be quite imaginative with that. So I think we should go with the other one. We'll go with the Five Nights at Freddy's, but starring the Leprechaun, basically. The next section, so we've only done this once before, but this is the best and worst of IMDb, which I think is going to be really interesting because I think it'd be relatively straightforward to break down why this film might be a one-star film. But I assume at least one person is giving this film 10 out of 10.
More than one person. So there was... sorry, I lost all the reviews. There was 200 odd reviews, I believe. Bear with me a second. I'll get it back now.
I assume this kind of elicits quite strong opinions one way or another. So it's like a lot of people like, this is the worst, or somehow this is the best. And I can imagine, like, I'm watching this film for the first time at 42 years of age in 2024. If I'd watched this film when I was like 9, which I assume probably be the ideal age where it feels just a little bit wrong and the violence would have more of an impact, maybe it would have been my favorite fucking movie of all time. And obviously it would have had Jennifer Aniston with her cool LA Gear trainers. But yeah, nowadays I'm like, it really is somewhere in the middle. But I can, like you said, I can imagine for a lot of people watching this in 1991, it would elicit quite strong reactions, which I'm sure you're going to tell me about right now.
So there was 252 reviews. 12 of them were 1 star. So I've like I said, we only do one of them, so I picked one out. So from January 2002, one of the worst movies I have ever seen. When I rented this movie, I thought I was in for a classic and memorable horror experience. I mean, everybody's heard of this movie, right? So it would have been it would have to be sort of good. Wrong. This movie was so bad. It wasn't even laughably bad. When it was supposed to be scary, it wasn't. When it was supposed to be funny, it wasn't. The whole movie is pretty much just a sight gag. Ha ha, look at the midget run. With some sort of poor excuse for a plot. Oompa Loompas are funnier and scarier. Also, has one of those feel-good endings that really makes me hate 90s horror. This movie failed miserably. Sorry, he put Oompa Loompas, not Oompa Loompas.
Yeah, that'll throw you. In fairness, I do kind of agree with what he's saying there. I can understand, like, if you came to this, I don't totally agree with it, but like if you were coming into this being like, man, like we were saying earlier, everyone's heard this film, and you're expecting it to be scary, and like, well, it's not really scary. Is it funny? Depends on your sense of humor. It's not exactly laugh out loud unless you're kind of, like you said, laughing at it rather than with it. So yeah, if someone came back and they're like, that was my opinion of the Leprechaun, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
For 10 star, 25 10-star reviews, so more than 1 star.
Yeah, fair play.
So, and this has to be a piss take. I chose it because it made me laugh, but it has to be a piss take. So from December 2005, the epitome of cinematic perfection, the reason why films exist. That's the title.
Clearly a fan. Clearly a fan.
So the reason why films exist is so that this movie, this celluloid gift to humanity, could come into existence. Occasionally, on very rare occasions, such a movie is released that is so perfect and magnificent in every single way that it changes the world and the people in it. And life morphosis to accommodate the glorious creation. This is the movie that humanity has been waiting for. Pure cinematic perfection. I'm so devastated that the highest score I could give this film is 10 out of 10 because it should in fact rate off the Richter scale. In addition to being the most powerful and thought-provoking movie in the history of cinema, it also has inspired me to become a better, more caring and generous person. The planet Earth owes you much, Leprechaun. I feel so sorry for the star, Warwick Davis. Everything in his career to come after this will naturally be a letdown because it is absolutely impossible to top this film. How disappointed he must be that Lord of the Rings could not compare to this. I, for one, would like to thank the creators for giving birth to such a masterpiece. That as I soak in every ounce of this movie, I lose my breath and shed my tears. The
Jesus
term
Christ.
best movie of all time is thrown around a lot, but as of 2005, I think we have an answer to this much debated topic. So if you haven't seen this movie, go out and do yourself a service and rent this masterstroke of filmmaking.
Well, clearly a fan, yes, obviously playing it for laughs. I mean, I don't think anyone would put this alongside, even its most avid fans are not going to be like, well, this belongs alongside Apocalypse Now and Citizen Kane and all that. It's like, I can see why people would like it. He's clearly swinging the fences. But again, you can see why people watching it would have that kind of like, if you watch it in the right way, that's almost the correct response to have. It's just like a
Yeah.
silly response to a silly film. But I suspect one is written for laughs and the other one is written from a very honest opinion and has very much the 1-star review. And like I said, if I was going to be on one end of the spectrum, 1 or 10, it would be closer to 1 for sure.
Who took the time to like that? I lost my breath reading that. Who took the time to do that?
Well, who like? But look at what's happened. 19 years later, it's ended up read out loud on a podcast. Who would have fucking thought? Ridiculous. Well, that leads us into our own ratings and recommendations. Nothing quite as extreme as those. I think you'd be unsurprised to hear that my rating is a 2. I wouldn't recommend it. However, it's a very fun 2. I'm not going to give it anything higher than 2 because I don't think it's a particularly well-made film. I do think Warwick Davis and Jennifer Aniston elevate it to a certain extent, but watching it for the first time in 2024, I'm like, it's not a fantastic film. If, however, I was watching it under the correct circumstances, I could see that kind of score going higher. You know, if you were watching it at like midnight at the cinema with a like-minded crowd, I think this could be really fun. But watching it in the living room with my wife, neither of us seen this film before. I was just like, actually, no, I'm telling you, my wife said she's seen it like 5 times, which I still can't. And she has no explanation for it. I'm like, why have you seen this film 5 times? She's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, thanks for that, all the clarity that provided. But yeah, it's a silly film. It's kind of fun, kind of charming, but I'd struggle to give it more than a 2.
It's funny, right? Because the other 3 films in October, I've called middle of the road, so I've given them a 3. I enjoy this film. I haven't called it middle of the road or anything like that. I did have fun with this film, like I've had fun with the others.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, this film is definitely a 2.5.
Okay, yeah, that's fair
It
enough.
is absolutely a 2.5 film. There's a lot that needs to be done with it, a lot that needs to be done with it, but it's also fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah,
I wouldn't recommend it. There's other horror films out there. Like if I'm going to recommend a film, it's Leprechaun 2.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
Leprechaun Returns, it's Leprechaun 2.
And in fairness,
But
I could change my mind. Like if I'd watched this for the first time, say if I was watching it with you and we had a few beers and we are watching this, it could have easily been a 3, depending on my
yeah,
mindset. Just watching it, like I said, in the kind of cold light of day, I'm just like, it's not a fantastic film. I struggle to give it more than a 2.
I
But
like
that does it's a surprisingly positive 2-star review.
I like what you said there and watching it with a few beers, like in the circumstances, because I look highly upon the film Tusk. Terrible
Oh,
film.
yeah, the Kevin Smith one.
Yeah, terrible film, obviously.
Mhm.
But I look highly upon it because I was drinking whiskey with Dave, frequent
Mhm.
collaborator on the podcast, and couldn't stop laughing to the point where I couldn't breathe.
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
laughing so hard. Maybe
Yeah,
I
but that's
shouldn't
the
have been laughing a
thing.
bit. So
I
I
get
look
that.
highly upon that, but it's not a good film. But so I see what you're saying about like if this was better circumstances. But it's definitely a 2.5. It
Yeah,
really
no,
is.
I'm
Yeah.
willing to go with that. So yeah. So not a 1-star, not a 10-star. We've gone 2 and 2.5, which I think is fair enough. But considering the relatively low score, both arguably quite positive about it all the same.
Yeah.
Next week, and the final part of our October season of Halloween podcast is my choice. The year so is 1987.
God, we fucking exhausted 87. I'm sure we have.
Apparently not. The director, this might help, Chuck Russell. I'm not sure if you remember
Oh,
Chuck Russell. We've covered him on the podcast once
yeah, we
before. It
have
was
done
one
a
of
few.
your choices. It was The Blob, a movie which I love.
Yeah.
He also did The Mask, which was a big hit, and he also did Eraser, which is fucking terrible. So a mixed bag. I think he did The Scorpion King as well. But I will give you one more clue before we move on to Star, because I think that might give it away. It's for a film series which he's not famous for.
So are we doing the first one of the film?
This is
No,
a sequel.
it's not the House 2, is it?
No. Do
No.
you want the star?
Yeah.
Patricia Arquette.
Oh, okay. Fuck me. You've been wanting to do this for ages. It's Dream Warriors, A
It
Nightmare on Elm
certainly
Street 3.
is. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I thought I'd give
Okay.
it away because I actually mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been tiptoeing around this for ages, and I decided that this was going to be the last one we
Oh,
did
we
for
talked
Halloween
about Chuck
season.
Russell doing it on the Blob, didn't we? We said he's done Nightmare on Elm
And
Street
oh my
3.
god,
Yeah.
if anything, like going back and rewatching this film, it made me think about the Blob again. And what a awesome! But if you haven't seen the Blob, by the way, we did that on the podcast. Absolutely great remake, fantastic film. But one of the things that Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, has, which this film, i.e. The Leprechaun, doesn't have, is genuinely inventive kills. That is the main thing I remember about, because it's more fun than certainly the first Nightmare on Elm Street, which is much more broadly horror. This one, he's not quite a cartoon character yet, but it is playing for laughs and going further with the concept. But it does so by delivering some of the series' most inventive kills. And like you, I'm sure you remember
The TV.
no, I always think of
The veins.
the veins is the
The
puppet.
marionette. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was like, see, this being one of like the earlier horror films I saw as a kid. That was one of the few sequences which freaked me out. I was just like, that is so fucking gross. But it's a great concept. Obviously, it's still peak Freddy at this point. So, and I think generally speaking, it's accepted as one of like the top 3 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Obviously, behind the original, which if you're interested, we covered a couple of years back on I think that was on the very first October season of Halloween podcast we did. But yeah, this one's been in the post for ages, so I think it's about time we covered it.
Was this the birth of Bitch as well?
The birth of Bitch.
Yeah, he's famous, isn't he? Halfway through, towards the end of it now. If you think of it, he calls everyone a bitch. Miss me, bitch. Do this, bitch.
Oh,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
I got you.
obviously, where does it come from? I thought that this Nightmare on Elm Street 3 would have been was the birth of Bitch, but I can't remember.
It might have been, because I always think of this like Freddy's Revenge, the second movie, is a peculiar film for many reasons, and it actually is one we might do next year because that film gives you plenty to talk about for numerous reasons. But I always think of this film as being the bridging point between, like, Freddy from the first film, which is very much a horror character, and then the more comedic route he went in the later films. But this is the one where it finds the perfect balance, where it's playing up to the character, allowing the movie to be more inventive, but it's still retaining those horror elements. Yeah. And that's why I always love this film.
I just realized,
though, I've not seen this film in a long fucking ass time. So
I just realized as well, I'm probably confusing this with Scary Terry from fucking Rick and Morty. I'm Scary Terry, bitch.
But yeah, I think that comes from, it comes from
Freddy Krueger saying bitch, but maybe doesn't say it as much as I thought it was.
Yeah, maybe you just got that. I mean, you were saying it like I should have known. You're like, the whole bitch thing. I'm like, is bitch a character or is bitch a thing? I don't realize. But needless to say, I've not actually seen, like I said, this for a long time anyway. And I actually went out and bought the entire box set, so I plan on rewatching all the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Even the bad ones, for the most part, because Freddy Krueger is just inherently, I think, maybe one of the top 3 horror characters of all time.
Yeah.
And even the bad films, again, like I was saying earlier about the horror genre, because the character's so fun, and you even in the worst films, you usually get a handful of decent deaths. I can still enjoy them, but I think they're more miss than hit still. What is it? There's probably 4 good films to like 4 or 5 bad ones, especially if you include the remake, which, wow, that was such a disappointment. If
you include the original run to Freddy's Dead, not the New Nightmare.
Yeah, the 7, right?
The 7, yeah. So probably about 3 or 4 good ones, yeah.
So out of 9, if you include all of them. No, if we include all of them, so say there's 9. I'd say there's 4 good ones, yeah. I think that's fair enough. Yeah. And I always thought of this as being the second best after the original. But we shall see. We'll find out next week. So yeah, this has been, the Leprechaun. And next week, the final part of the horror season, we'll be covering 1987's Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, which I think is going to be super fun. Anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, all good for me, mate.
All right, cool. I've been Liam. He's been Rob. And you have been listening to the Hey Guys podcast. See you next week, guys. Cheers. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye, bitch. Just throw it in there.
Oh, why not? Why not? Yeah. Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.